My husband said our baby wasn't his and packed. Then he saw the lab result with his mother's name on it. The paper was rattling in my hands, and at first I thought it was the air conditioning. It wasn't. It was me. My whole body was shaking. 6 hours after giving birth to my daughter, alone in a maternity room at St. Mary's Hospital in Richmond, at nearly midnight, staring at a paternity test result that said my husband was not the father. 0% match. Thatcher's coat was gone. His overnight bag was gone. The only thing he left behind was a sticky note pressed to the document in his handwriting. I know she's not mine. Don't contact me. Baby Ivy was asleep in the bassinet 2 feet away, and the world I thought I had, the marriage, the home, the family had vanished while I was still wearing a hospital gown. I didn't know yet that the paper in my hands was a lie. I didn't know that the person who created it had been standing in this very room 2 hours earlier, smiling at me, kissing my forehead, telling me what a beautiful granddaughter she had. But I was about to find out, and when I did, it would destroy her. If you've ever watched someone lie about you and felt completely powerless to stop it, hit subscribe right now. Because this story is about to turn hard. I called Thatcher 17 times the next morning. Every single call went to voicemail. So I called his mother, Colette. She picked up on the second ring, and her voice was so calm it made my stomach drop. Maybe you should think about whose baby that really is, she said, before you start making demands. Then she hung up. I sat there holding my phone, milk leaking through my gown, tears streaming down my face, and a nurse I'd worked with for 3 years walked in and found me like that. I couldn't even tell her what happened. The shame was already eating me alive. So I called the only person I trusted completely, my older sister, Sloane. Sloane is a paralegal at a family law firm in Norfolk. She's sharp, she's protective, and she had never trusted Colette Granger for a single second. When I told her everything through sobs, she went quiet. Then she said 4 words that changed the next 6 months of my life. Don't throw that paper away. To understand how I ended up alone in that hospital room, you need to understand the Grangers. I married Thatcher 3 years before Ivy was born. He was charming, attentive, and completely under his mother's control. I just didn't see it yet. Colette Granger was a retired OB/GYN, a Richmond Society fixture, and she sat on the board of a women's health nonprofit called the Amara Foundation. She had credentials, connections, and a Tudor-style home in Windsor Farms that smelled like fresh lilies and old money. And from the day Thatcher introduced me, she made one thing clear. I was staff, not family. At our wedding rehearsal dinner, she pulled me aside near the dessert table and said, I hope you understand that Thatcher is making a choice, not a commitment. Choices can be undone. I smiled and said nothing. I told myself she'd warm up. When I got pregnant, something shifted. Colette started showing up unannounced at our townhome in the Fan District. She'd ask oddly specific questions about my work schedule at the NICU, which doctors I worked with, whether I ever stayed late. She made a comment once about a male charge nurse I'd mentioned in passing. He sounds handsome. Do you two work closely? I laughed it off. I thought she was finally taking an interest in my life. I didn't realize she was building a case. In my 7th month, Colette insisted Thatcher come to dinner alone. Just mother and son, she said. He came home that night and wouldn't look at me. That week, he started checking my phone. He'd pick it up when I was in the shower, scroll through my messages while pretending to look for a recipe. I felt the distance growing, but I blamed the pregnancy stress. I blamed myself. I know now from the text messages we eventually recovered that this was the night Colette first told Thatcher the baby might not be his. She promised him she'd find out for sure. She'd already bought the printer paper by then. 4 days after Ivy was born, I drove to Sloane's apartment in Norfolk with my newborn in the back seat, and that fake paternity report in my purse. Sloane photographed it front and back, noted the lab name, Tidewater Genomics, and told me she'd verify it. I broke down on her couch and told her what I was really afraid of. Not just the divorce. I was terrified Thatcher would file publicly, claim I'd been unfaithful, and destroy my reputation. My nursing license review was 6 months away. If Colette's smear campaign about my unstable behavior gained traction, I could lose everything. My career, my daughter, my name. Sloane made a call that afternoon. What she found out made both of us go completely silent. She called Tidewater Genomics directly. She gave them every name, Alara Sutton, Thatcher Granger, infant Ivy Granger. The woman on the phone checked twice. There was no record. No test had ever been ordered. No samples received, no report generated. The document sitting in my purse was fabricated, entirely. Someone had created it from scratch, printed it on fake letterhead, and placed it beside my hospital bed while I was recovering from labor. Sloan immediately called the senior family law attorney at her firm, Garrison Hale. He agreed to take my case that same afternoon. His first instruction was precise: preserve everything, touch nothing, especially the PDF she emailed to Thatcher. 2 weeks later, I moved into my mother's farmhouse in Henrico County. Wren Sutton is a retired schoolteacher with a quiet voice and a backbone made of iron. I needed both. Ivy was colicky. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch, and then the process server showed up. Thatcher had filed for legal separation and a formal paternity challenge. The filing used the words, "suspected infidelity." It requested I submit to a court-ordered DNA test. This was now public record. Anyone could see it. I sat at my mother's kitchen table with the papers in front of me and felt the walls closing in. Wren sat down across from me, folded her hands, and said, "You let them put this in a courtroom. Good, because a courtroom has a judge, and a judge can see a liar." The next week, I sat in Garrison Hale's office and listened to him lay out a strategy I hadn't expected. He told me we would not fight the court-ordered DNA test. We would welcome it, because the real test, administered under proper chain of custody, would prove what I already knew: Thatcher was Ivy's father. Meanwhile, Garrison subpoenaed records from Tidewater Genomics, retained a forensic document examiner named Dr. Hollis Fairbanks, and filed a counter-motion asking the court to investigate the origin of the fake report. Before I left, Garrison leaned back in his chair and said, "If this document was forged by someone with medical credentials, that's not just fraud, that's a career-ending event." Then he added, "I need you to get me access to Thatcher's phone, or at least what's on it." I got my chance the following week. I returned to our townhome with Sloan to collect my belongings. A supervised visit, both of us careful and quiet. Thatcher was there. He was cold, rehearsed, clearly coached. He stood in the doorway of what used to be our bedroom and called me pathetic. "My mother warned me about women like you," he said. He didn't even look at the baby carrier. When his phone rang, Colette's ringtone, I recognized it. He stepped outside to take the call. That's when Sloan noticed his old phone sitting on the kitchen counter, plugged in, still synced to his iCloud. She didn't touch it. She photographed the screen showing the active sync, and within days, Garrison obtained a court order to preserve Thatcher's entire iCloud account, including every message with his mother, 23 text messages, 4 voicemails, every single one from Colette. Every single one a blueprint for what they did to me. If you've ever watched someone lie about you and felt powerless to stop it, hit subscribe, because this story is about to turn hard. By week 6, Dr. Hollis Fairbanks had completed his forensic analysis, and the results were devastating for Colette. The PDF metadata of the fake paternity report listed the author as C. Granger. The creation date was 3 days before Ivy was even born. The printer model matched an HP LaserJet that Colette had registered on a home office tax deduction, and the paper stock 28-pound linen resume paper from Staples didn't match the 24-pound security stock that Tidewater Genomics actually uses. Garrison filed a motion to add Colette Granger as a party of interest and requested an evidentiary hearing. Colette didn't know about any of it. She was busy that weekend planning a fundraiser for the Amara Foundation. She even sent me an invitation. I think it was meant to taunt me. She had no idea she'd be the one on display soon enough. Sloan bought a ticket to that gala at the Jefferson Hotel. She went alone, sat in the back, and watched. She told me later that Colette was radiant, cream-colored gown, perfect posture, standing ovation after her speech about protecting women and children. Thatcher was her escort, beaming beside her. At one point, Colette leaned toward a board member and said loud enough for Sloan to hear, "My son is finally free of that woman. The truth always comes out." Sloan texted me from the bathroom, "Let them enjoy tonight." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I held Ivy on my mother's porch at 3 a.m. and spiraled. What if the judge sided with the Grangers? What if Colette's money hired a better expert? What if none of it mattered and I'd just be the woman who made a scene and still lost? I almost called Garrison to settle. Just sign the divorce papers quietly, take what I could, and disappear. Then my mother came out in her bathrobe, sat in the rocker beside me, and said, "You're not doing this for revenge. You're doing this so your daughter never has to read a court file that says her mother was a liar." I didn't sleep that night, but I stopped shaking. Richmond Circuit Court. Courtroom 4B. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights softened by tall east-facing windows, the Virginia state seal behind the bench. It smelled like old paper and floor polish. I arrived with Garrison and sat at the respondent's table with my hands flat on the surface, because I didn't trust them not to tremble. Thatcher walked in with his attorney. Behind them came Colette, charcoal Chanel suit, pearl earrings, chin lifted like she was arriving at a board meeting, not a courtroom. She sat in the front row of the gallery and whispered something to Thatcher's attorney. She was smiling. In the third row, I noticed the executive director of the Amara Foundation portfolio in her lap. Colette had invited her. She expected a victory lap. About 30 people filled the gallery, both families, 2 of Thatcher's co-workers. My mother sat directly behind me. I could feel her presence like a hand on my spine. Judge Cordelia Lennox took the bench. 15 years in family court. Garrison stood first. Your Honor, we'd like to begin with the results of the court-ordered paternity test, administered under AABB chain of custody protocols. He paused. The room was silent. The test confirms, with 99.998% probability, that Thatcher Granger is the biological father of Ivy Granger. I watched Thatcher's face drain of color. His attorney shifted in his seat and started to speak. Your Honor, my client was provided with a prior test showing. Garrison didn't let him finish. And that's exactly what we'd like to address next. We call Dr. Hollis Fairbanks, forensic document examiner. Dr. Fairbanks took the stand. He was calm, methodical, devastating. He explained that the document submitted as a paternity test from Tidewater Genomics was not produced by that laboratory. Tidewater had confirmed in writing that no such test was ever ordered. Then he turned to the courtroom monitor. The PDF metadata identifies the document's author as C. Granger, he said. It was created on a home printer, an HP LaserJet registered to this address. The screen filled with the metadata, Colette's name, her printer model, the creation date 3 days before my daughter was born. A gasp broke from the left side of the gallery. My family. The Amara Foundation's executive director put her hand over her mouth. Colette's lips parted, but no sound came out. Then Garrison read the texts. October 14th. Colette Granger to Thatcher Granger. I'll have the proof ready before the baby comes. He turned a page. October 21st. Tell her at the hospital. She'll be too weak to fight. Another page. October 23rd. Once this is filed, she'll slink away and you'll be free. Judge Lennox's expression hardened. She looked directly at Colette. Dr. Granger, do you wish to respond to these communications on the record? Colette stood. Her hands gripped the gallery railing. Her voice cracked when she spoke. I was only trying to protect my son from a woman who— Judge Lennox cut her off. From a woman who what, Dr. Granger? From the mother of his child? The child whose paternity you fabricated evidence to deny? The courtroom went still. Thatcher slumped forward at the defense table, elbows down, forehead in his palms. He didn't look at his mother. One of his co-workers quietly stood and left the room. The Amara Foundation director closed her portfolio and started texting. Behind me, my mother reached forward and squeezed my shoulder. I didn't move. I sat with my hands flat on the table, jaw tight, one tear running down my left cheek that I did not wipe away. Judge Lennox delivered her ruling from the bench. She struck Thatcher's paternity challenge with prejudice, meaning it could never be refiled. She issued a formal finding that fraudulent evidence had been introduced into her courtroom. She referred the matter to the Commonwealth's attorney for criminal investigation. She ordered the court clerk to notify the Virginia Board of Medicine. She awarded me temporary full custody of Ivy and ordered Thatcher to pay my legal fees and interim child support. Then she looked at Colette, and the courtroom held its breath. Dr. Granger, you used your medical credentials to manufacture a lie. You weaponized it against your own grandchild's mother in the most vulnerable hours of her life. And then you introduced it into this court as though it were truth. She paused. This court does not take that lightly, and neither will the Commonwealth. The only sound was the court reporter's keys. In the hallway afterward, the Amara Foundation's executive director approached Colette. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "The board will be meeting Monday. Don't attend." Colette stared at her and said nothing. In the parking lot, Thatcher caught up to me. He looked smaller somehow. "Alara, I didn't know she... I held up my hand. You said our daughter wasn't yours. In a hospital room. While I could still barely walk. I looked him dead in the eyes. You don't get to finish that sentence. I got in the car with Sloan, buckled Ivy's carrier in the back seat, and drove to my mother's house. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Within 2 weeks, the Commonwealth's attorney opened a formal investigation. Colette was charged with 1 count of fraud upon the court, a Class 6 felony in Virginia, and 1 count of fabricating a medical document. She was released on $10,000 bond. The Virginia Board of Medicine suspended her remaining clinical privileges pending their own review. The private clinic where she'd held courtesy privileges revoked them permanently. That Monday, the Amara Foundation Board voted unanimously to remove her. Her name was scrubbed from their website, their donor wall, and their annual report. Her criminal defense attorney charged $450 an hour. Over the next several months, her legal costs exceeded $85,000. Thatcher withdrew his separation filing. I didn't take him back. I filed for divorce, and he didn't contest it. His managing director at the commercial real estate firm had a private conversation with him about judgment and character. He was quietly passed over for a partnership track promotion. He moved to a smaller apartment in Chesterfield County. He gets supervised visitation with Ivy twice a month. He has to complete a co-parenting course first. Colette eventually took a plea deal. The felony was reduced to a misdemeanor. 18 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and a permanent mark on her record. The Board of Medicine revoked her privileges entirely. She can no longer practice medicine in any capacity in Virginia. 8 months after the hearing, her Windsor Farms home went on the market. She couldn't afford the taxes without her consulting income and nonprofit stipends. She moved to a condo in Short Pump. She has never met Ivy. I blocked Colette's number, her email, and every social media account she has. The divorce agreement includes a no-contact clause. She is not permitted to be present during Thatcher's supervised visitation. I obtained a 2-year protective order. I changed the locks on the townhome, which was awarded to me, and installed cameras on every door. I removed both Thatcher and Colette from Ivy's medical and emergency contact forms. I'm back at work in the NICU at St. Mary's part-time for now, building back to full-time. My nursing license renewed without a single issue. My mother visits every Thursday. Sloan and I talk almost every day. If this story hit home, drop a comment. You're not alone in this. Thatcher has started making vague comments during visitation handoffs about wanting to talk and working on himself. I don't know if it's real or if someone is coaching him again. I don't engage. Sloan told me last month that Colette has been telling people she was railroaded and that the judge was biased. I don't respond to that either. But I keep the protective order active, and I document everything. There's a car I don't recognize that's been parked across my street twice this month. It's probably nothing. Probably. I saved the license plate anyway. I keep that fake lab report in a fireproof safe now. Not because I need it, because I need her to know I still have it.